The massive studio lights glowed brightly as a 10-year-old Indian girl named Anaya stepped nervously onto the Britain's Got Talent stage. Her small hands clutched the microphone tightly, and her eyes darted toward the panel of judges. The crowd waited in quiet curiosity, unsure of what to expect from such a young contestant. Dressed in a simple yet colorful Indian outfit, she took a deep breath, her heart pounding so loudly she could almost hear it over the audience's murmurs. The music started, a familiar piano intro to Whitney Houston's "I Have Nothing." Anaya began singing softly, her fragile voice trembling at first. Simon Cowell's face revealed uncertainty. He leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. As she reached the chorus, her pitch wavered. Then suddenly, Simon raised his hand and pressed the buzzer. The loud sound echoed through the hall, and the music stopped abruptly. The audience gasped. Anaya froze, her wide eyes filling with tears. Simon looked at her and said, "Sweetheart, that's a very big song, maybe too big for you." His tone wasn't cruel, but the words still pierced her heart. The room fell silent. The young girl looked down for a moment, then slowly lifted her head, gathering courage from somewhere deep inside. In a soft but steady voice, she said, "Can I try one more time, my way?" The audience murmured in support, and even Simon seemed taken aback by her calm confidence. After a pause, he nodded, curious to see what she would do next. The lights dimmed again, and Anaya closed her eyes, ready to begin once more, this time not as a nervous contestant, but as an artist about to surprise the world. It was the calm before something unforgettable. The lights dimmed again, and this time, a soft tabla rhythm replaced the piano. The audience leaned forward, sensing something different. Anaya stood tall at the center of the stage, her nerves now replaced with quiet confidence. As the music began, she started to sing in her native language, Hindi, her voice clear, soulful, and rich with emotion. The melody carried the essence of Indian classical music, blending effortlessly with a gentle Western beat. The transformation was breathtaking. Every note she sang told a story. Her hands moved gracefully, her expressions alive with feeling. The judges, who moments ago had doubted her, now looked stunned. Simon's eyes widened slightly, he leaned back in his chair, listening intently. Amanda's hand covered her mouth in awe. The crowd that had been silent at first now began to sway to the rhythm, captivated by this unexpected fusion of cultures. Anaya's voice grew stronger with every verse. Her tone soared, perfectly controlled, as if the fear from moments earlier had completely vanished. The song was no longer just a performance, it was a message, a declaration of identity and pride. The combination of English lyrics with traditional Indian notes created something magical, something never heard before on that stage. By the time she reached the final chorus, the energy in the auditorium was electric. People rose from their seats, clapping and cheering her on. Simon exchanged a look with the other judges, a silent acknowledgement that they were witnessing something special. Anaya finished her song with a long, powerful note that filled the room, echoing with confidence and grace. The moment the last note faded, the entire hall erupted in applause, and Anaya stood there, breathless but smiling, her dream finally taking shape. As the final note of Anaya's performance lingered in the air, there was a heartbeat of silence, and then the entire audience erupted into a thunderous standing ovation. The applause was deafening, echoing through the theater like waves. People rose from their seats, clapping, cheering, and even whistling in excitement. The camera zoomed in on Simon Cowell's face, his usual stern expression had completely softened. He was clapping, shaking his head in disbelief, a small smile forming as if he couldn't quite process what he'd just witnessed. Anaya stood motionless for a few seconds, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of fear anymore, they were tears of pride and relief. She had turned her rejection into a triumph. Amanda and Alicia were already on their feet, clapping enthusiastically, their faces glowing with admiration. Even the tough-to-impress Simon couldn't hide the fact that he was moved. The audience began chanting her name, Anaya. Anaya. Filling the room with energy and emotion. Her mother, watching backstage, covered her mouth in disbelief, tears streaming down her face. Anaya slowly bowed, placing her hands together in a respectful namaste, a gesture that made the crowd cheer even louder. Flashing cameras captured every moment as golden lights shimmered across the stage, adding to the magic. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The little girl who had once been told this song is too big for you had just owned the stage completely. The atmosphere was electric, emotional, and unforgettable. Anaya smiled through her tears, realizing she hadn't just sung a song, she had made history in her own voice, in her own way. As the applause slowly faded, Simon Cowell leaned forward, resting his elbows on the judge's desk. His expression was softer than anyone had ever seen, no trace of his usual skepticism remained. He picked up the microphone and said, "Anaya, I'll be honest, when you first started, I thought the song was too much for you. But you didn't just prove me wrong, you created something extraordinary." His words carried genuine admiration, and the audience cheered again in agreement. Anaya stood there, her eyes glistening with emotion, unsure how to respond. Amanda leaned closer to her microphone and added warmly, "That was breathtaking, sweetheart. You didn't just sing, you told a story that reached everyone here tonight." Alicia smiled proudly and said, "You blended two worlds together, your roots and your dream, and it was pure magic." The crowd erupted into applause once more, echoing the judge's praise. Anaya's tiny hands trembled as she held the microphone close. She smiled shyly and said, "I just wanted to sing from my heart, and show that music has no borders." Her voice cracked slightly, and the sincerity in her words made the audience cheer even louder. Simon nodded with a rare look of respect and said, "That's exactly what true artists do. You didn't give up, even when I stopped you, and that's what makes you unforgettable." The camera zoomed in on Anaya's tearful but glowing face. The other judges clapped again as Simon looked at her proudly. The crowd was still on its feet, chanting her name, their energy filling the entire theater. In that moment, it was clear, this wasn't just a good performance, it was a defining one that had touched millions of hearts. As the cheers continued to fill the theater, Simon glanced at the other judges, then back at the young girl standing under the golden lights. He reached toward the panel and, without a word, pressed the golden buzzer. Instantly, a storm of golden confetti burst from above, raining down over Anaya. The audience screamed with joy, rising once again to their feet. Anaya gasped, covering her mouth in disbelief as tears streamed down her cheeks. She looked around in shock, her small hands trembling, overwhelmed by the sight of glittering gold falling all around her. Her mother ran from backstage, unable to hold back her emotions. They embraced tightly at center stage, both crying and laughing at the same time. The audience clapped in rhythm, chanting Anaya's name, their voices echoing like music. Simon stood up and walked toward the stage, smiling warmly, something rarely seen from him. He leaned close and said softly, "You just changed everything tonight. I stopped you once, but you showed me why I should have listened." The little girl nodded through tears, whispering, "Thank you for letting me try again." The golden lights reflected in her eyes, making the moment look like a dream come to life. Amanda and Alicia wiped away tears, visibly moved by the purity and power of what they had witnessed. The camera panned across the audience, families hugging, children cheering, and people waving Indian flags proudly. The stage, now glowing in gold, symbolized not just victory but resilience. Anaya had come as a nervous little girl and left as an inspiration to millions. Her courage, her voice, and her refusal to give up had turned a moment of doubt into one of the most unforgettable golden buzzer performances in the show's history.